What if I told you that a mind trapped in endless loops of negative thinking could find peace using wisdom that's over 2,500 years old? What if those exhausting mental conversations, the what-if spirals, and the constant replay of past mistakes could be transformed with techniques that have freed countless minds from their own prisons? Today, I'm sharing 5 powerful Buddhist practices specifically designed to break the cycle of overthinking and negative thought patterns. These aren't complex philosophical concepts requiring years of study. They're practical tools you can use the moment your mind starts spinning, whether you're replaying an embarrassing moment from last week, catastrophizing about tomorrow's presentation, or stuck in that familiar loop of self-criticism. I've personally used these techniques to go from someone whose mind never stopped analyzing, judging, and rehashing every interaction to finding genuine mental peace and clarity. By the end of this video, you'll have these same liberating tools in your mental wellness toolkit. Let's explore how ancient Buddhist wisdom can free you from the modern curse of overthinking. Seeing overthinking through the lens of Buddhist teachings. Before we move into practical tools, it's essential to look at how Buddhism understands the thinking mind, especially our habit of overthinking. This viewpoint is strikingly different from how most people interact with their inner world. In Buddhist psychology, overthinking is a sign of what's known as vitakka vikara, the restless activity of a mind that hasn't been trained. The Buddha once likened the unfocused mind to a wild monkey, leaping from one branch to the next, never pausing, always chasing the next thought or worry. But here's the core realization. Buddhism doesn't define us by our thoughts. Instead, it points to a deeper truth, that we are the awareness behind those thoughts. Thoughts rise and fall within consciousness, but they are not the essence of who we are. Once we see this clearly, we no longer feel trapped by our mental noise. Much of our mental turmoil stems from 3 habitual patterns that Buddhism identifies. The comparing mind. We're constantly evaluating how we measure up, what we lack, how we used to be, or what we should be. This generates an inner commentary of inadequacy, envy, and regret. The narrative-building mind. Our minds love crafting stories about ourselves, others, and the world. But these mental stories often become distorted lenses through which we view life. We mistake imagined scenarios and assumptions for reality. The controlling mind. Overthinking is often our way of trying to manage uncertainty. We assume that if we think long and hard enough, we'll gain control, avoid pain, or secure success. But this control is an illusion. Rather than fighting with our thoughts or trying to silence them, Buddhism invites us to relate to them differently. Thoughts are not problems to fix. They're temporary phenomena like waves on the surface of a vast ocean. When we stop clinging to them or resisting them, they pass on their own. This shift is powerful. We stop being entangled in every thought that appears. Instead, we step back into the spaciousness of awareness, watching the mind's activity with calm curiosity rather than fear or frustration. The root of mental suffering. Insights from Buddhism. Why does the mind feel so heavy sometimes? Why do we find ourselves lost in loops of doubt, worry, and self-criticism? According to Buddhist wisdom, the problem isn't simply that we think too much, it's that we've forgotten how to relate to our thoughts wisely. The mind by nature generates thoughts constantly. That's not a problem. What creates suffering is our attachment to these thoughts, our tendency to believe, react to, and wrestle with every passing idea as if it were absolute truth. We grasp at control. We cling to what we want, fear what we don't, and demand that life fit neatly into our expectations. But life is uncertain by design, always changing, always moving. And when we fight this reality, we suffer. The more we resist what is, the more we feed the storm inside our heads. Buddhism doesn't ask us to stop thinking or force the mind into silence. It invites us to wake up to what's happening inside, to see thoughts not as enemies, but as weather, forming, shifting, dissolving. Some thoughts are dark clouds, others are passing breezes, but none of them are permanent. None define who we are. With practice, we begin to notice a subtle shift. Instead of being pulled into every mental story, we start to observe. We create space. A thought appears, and instead of reacting, we simply notice, Ah, there you are. This space is where healing begins. Peace doesn't come from mastering the mind, but from making peace with it, from sitting beside our thoughts, rather, than getting swept away by them. From realizing that we are not the noise, we are the awareness holding it all. There's no need to fix everything, no need to have all the answers, just a gentle returning, moment by moment, to presence, to breath, to stillness. And in that return the chaos softens, the mind quiets, and we remember, underneath the noise, we are already whole. Exercise 1. The Thought Labeling Technique. Our first practice comes from Satipatthana, the foundations of mindfulness. When we're caught in overthinking, we're usually unconscious of the type of thinking we're doing. This technique creates conscious awareness of our thought patterns. The power of labeling thoughts is that it creates distance between you and your mental activity. Instead of being lost in thought, you become an observer of thinking. Step 1. Recognize your thinking. The moment you notice you've been lost in thought, simply acknowledge, thinking is happening. Don't judge yourself for thinking. This recognition itself is a moment of awakening. Step 2. Identify the type of thought. Gently label what kind of thinking you're doing. Worrying, for future-focused anxious thoughts, replaying, for rehashing past events, judging, for critical thoughts about yourself or others, planning, for excessive mental organizing, fantasizing, for unrealistic scenarios, comparing, for measuring yourself against. Others. Step 3. Observe without engagement. Once labeled, resist the urge to continue the thought thread. Simply observe. I notice worrying is happening, or I see judging thoughts arising. You're not stopping the thoughts. You're changing your relationship with them. Step 4. Return to the present. After labeling, gently bring your attention to something present, your breath, physical sensations, sounds around you, or whatever you're supposed to be doing in that moment. Step 5. Practice. Compassionate redirection. If the same thought pattern returns, which it will, repeat the process with kindness. Oh, there's worrying again. That's okay. Back to the present moment. This practice works because it interrupts the unconscious flow of repetitive thinking. Most overthinking happens on autopilot. Labeling brings consciousness to the process, which naturally creates space and choice. With consistent practice, you'll notice gaps between thoughts getting longer and your identification with mental chatter loosening. You begin to experience yourself as the awareness that observes thoughts rather than the thoughts themselves. If this message resonates with you, and you're seeking more moments of peace and insight, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for daily reflections rooted in ancient wisdom and modern clarity. Exercise 2. The Impermanence of Thoughts Practice. One of Buddhism's most liberating insights is anicca, the understanding that everything is impermanent, including our thoughts and mental states. Overthinking often feels overwhelming because we unconsciously treat thoughts as solid, permanent realities rather than temporary mental events. This practice teaches you to see thoughts as they truly are, temporary visitors in the space of your awareness. Step 1. Sit with your thoughts. When you notice negative thinking or mental loops, instead of does it fluctuate? You'll typically find that even the most compelling thoughts have natural peaks and valleys of intensity. Step 4. Watch the passing. This is the most important part. Observe how thoughts naturally fade away when you don't feed them with attention. If you don't grab onto a thought and spin a story around it, it will dissolve on its own. Step 5. Appreciate the space. Notice the moments of quiet between thoughts. These gaps prove that you are not your thoughts. You're the spacious awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear. Rest in this awareness. Step 6. Apply the insight. When caught in overwhelming thoughts, remind yourself, this thought is temporary. It arose from nothing and will return to nothing. I don't need to solve it, fix it, or make it go away. I can simply let it be. This practice is particularly powerful for people who get caught in emotional thinking. When you truly understand that even the most intense negative thoughts are impermanent, they lose their power to control your mood and behavior. Many practitioners discover that thoughts are much less substantial than they previously believed. What seemed like urgent mental emergencies begin to feel more like weather patterns, temporary conditions that don't require immediate action. Exercise 3. Turning the inner critic into an inner friend. Buddhist wisdom teaches that one of the most powerful forms of healing comes not from fixing ourselves, but from learning to relate to ourselves with compassion. So often, our thoughts are filled with self-judgment. We call ourselves failures, convince ourselves we're behind, or punish ourselves for not being perfect. This quiet stream of inner hostility might seem normal, but it slowly erodes our confidence, peace, and well-being. But here's the good news. Just as the mind can learn harshness, it can also learn kindness. We can teach ourselves a gentler way to speak, to think, to relate inwardly. Step 1. Catch the voice of self-attack. Start by listening. Pay attention when the inner voice says things like, "You always screw this up." "You're not smart enough." "No one else struggles like you do." These phrases may sound familiar, and that's okay. Awareness is the first step. Just notice that this voice is present and name it gently. This is the voice of all self-criticism. Step 2. See the pain beneath the critic. Rather than reacting with more judgment, "I shouldn't be thinking this," meet the inner critic with compassion. This voice likely emerged during times when you were hurt, rejected, or afraid. It's trying to protect you in the only way it knows how. You might say internally, "I see you're trying to keep me safe, but I don't need to be treated this way anymore." Step 3. Nurture a new inner relationship. Now begin to invite a new tone. One that's patient, encouraging, and loving. Speak inwardly with the same kindness you'd offer someone you deeply care about. Try saying things like, "You're allowed to be learning. Even with your mistakes, you are still worthy of love. This is hard, and you're doing the best you can." Repeat these words often, not just when things go wrong, but especially then. Over time, this voice of kindness grows stronger, and the critical voice loses its grip. You don't have to be perfect to be at peace. This practice isn't about pretending to be flawless. It's about creating a safe space inside yourself, a space where you can rest, grow, and heal. When we speak to ourselves with love instead of fear, the mind softens. The inner war quiets down, and from that place real transformation becomes possible. Exercise 4. The mental noting technique. This practice comes from vipassana, or insight meditation, where practitioners learn to observe the content and nature of mental activity with precise awareness. Instead of getting lost in the story of our thoughts, we learn to see the mechanics of thinking itself. Mental noting creates what Buddhists call bare attention, awareness without judgment, story, or analysis. Step 1. Establish your observer self. Sit comfortably and imagine there are two aspects of your mind: the thinking mind, which produces thoughts, and the observing mind, which notices thinking. You're going to strengthen the observer. Step 2. Watch for mental activity. Notice whatever arises in your mind: thoughts, images, memories, plans, judgments. Don't try to control what comes up. Simply observe with curiosity. What is my mind doing right now? Step 3. Make simple notes. When you notice mental activity, make simple, neutral notes. Remembering, for memories. Planning, for future-focused thoughts. Judging, for evaluative thoughts. Imagining, for fantasy or speculation. Doubting, for uncertain thoughts. Wanting, for desire-based thoughts. Step 4. Keep notes. Simple. Resist the urge to analyze or elaborate. If you catch yourself thinking, "I'm remembering that embarrassing thing I said yesterday and now I'm wondering what people thought about it," simply note remembering and possibly wondering. Step 5. Notice patterns. Over time, you'll begin to see your mind's habitual patterns. Do you spend more time in past-focused thoughts or future ones? Is your mental activity mostly self-focused or other-focused? Are certain types of thoughts more sticky than others? Step 6. Apply in daily life. Use this technique throughout your day. When you catch yourself in mental loops, take a moment to note what type of thinking is happening. This creates immediate space and choice about whether to continue the thought thread. Step 7. Appreciate your mind's creativity. Begin to see your thinking. Mind as incredibly creative and active, rather than problematic. You can appreciate its productivity while choosing not to follow every thought it produces. This practice is powerful because it develops what Buddhism calls metacognitive awareness, awareness of awareness itself. You begin to see that you have much more choice about what to do with your thoughts than you previously realized. Many practitioners find that once they can clearly see their thinking patterns, those patterns naturally begin to shift. Unconscious mental habits lose their power when brought into the light of awareness. Exercise 5. The pause and see method. A mindful response to overthinking, rooted in Buddhist awareness. When the mind begins spiraling into loops of doubt, anxiety, or replaying the past, we often react in extremes, either trying to silence the mind forcefully or getting swept away by its noise. Buddhism encourages something different, right effort, a path of neither suppression nor indulgence, but skillful redirection. The pause and see method is a gentle technique that allows you to break free from mental loops by creating space and returning to presence. P. Pause the pattern. The first step is simply to pause. When you catch yourself lost in rumination or rapid-fire thinking, mentally say, pause. It's like gently putting the mind in neutral, not slamming on the brakes, just taking your foot off the gas. You're signaling to your system, I don't have to follow this trail right now. Attune to the breath. Now take one slow, conscious breath. Let your attention sink into the sensation of the inhale and exhale. This breath is your grounding point, a moment where you return to the body and to life as it's happening now, not as imagined in the mind. You understand what's arising. Instead of judging your thoughts, simply notice, what's really going on inside me? Is it fear, uncertainty, shame? Ask, what emotion is underneath these thoughts? What is my mind trying to protect me from? Understanding gives you perspective. It shifts you from being inside the storm to observing it from a distance. Shift your focus gently. Now that you've created space, shift your attention in a helpful direction. You might bring awareness to your physical surroundings, return to the task at hand, move your body, stretch, walk, feel your feet. Offer yourself a kind phrase, this too will pass, or I am safe right now. Engage with wise intention. From this grounded place, decide your next step. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond wisely. Ask yourself, what would be the most compassionate thing I can do now? What really needs my attention in this moment? Even if you return to the same issue, you do it from a clearer, calmer inner space. Use it. In specific scenarios, when worrying about the future, ask, is this happening now or just imagined? When caught in regret, ask, what is still within my power to do or learn? When stuck in self-criticism, ask, what would I say to someone I love who felt this way? When overthinking a decision, ask, what is one small, safe next step I can take? When fearing judgment, ask, am I assuming what others think or am I just afraid of being vulnerable? Why this works? The pause and see method brings mindfulness into the exact moment you need it most, not later, not after the spiral, but right in the middle of it. It doesn't fight the mind. It redirects it with curiosity, care, and clarity. Over time, this becomes second nature, a soft skill, a thread of calm you can follow, no matter how loud your thoughts get, bringing practice into the moments that matter. Buddhist practice isn't limited to meditation cushions, retreat halls, or quiet rooms with incense and candles. Its true power is revealed not in stillness alone, but in movement, in the raw, ordinary, chaotic moments of daily life. The real practice is this: When your thoughts start racing before an important conversation, when you lie awake at night replaying mistakes, when your to-do list overwhelms you, can you pause, breathe, and return to presence? This is where the transformation happens. It's in choosing to speak kindly to yourself after a failure. It's in stepping out of a thought spiral during your morning commute. It's in remembering that you are not your anxious mind, but the awareness behind it. You don't need hours of meditation to change your relationship with overthinking. You just need moments where you choose presence over panic, compassion over criticism, clarity over chaos. So let practice weave itself into the fabric of your daily life. Let your morning coffee be a mindfulness ritual. Let your walk to the store be a time to breathe instead of analyze. Let your moments of doubt become invitations to soften. Let silence be a teacher, not a void you rush to fill. And most of all, let your imperfection be welcome. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old loops, that's okay. What matters is that you notice and return. Each return strengthens the habit of inner peace. Each return makes the next one easier. Each return is a quiet revolution. In the end, this is the essence of practice, to live with a little more kindness, a little more awareness, and a little more freedom, right here in the middle of your beautiful, messy thinking life.